Hi. I know I don't really do long form content very often, but I thought it would be fun to read Keeper of Velocities. I've already read it a couple times, but for an audiobook for you guys. So I'm just gonna start off where I am currently, which is chapter 20. I'm sorry if you wanted to listen to the whole thing. I'll probably get the first 19 chapters out later, but for now, we're starting on chapter 20. Okay. Please do not listen to this if you haven't read the first 19 chapters, and if you have, enjoy. Okay. He's a mesmer, Morella told her the next day during lunch. Why? I don't know. It's weird that he wouldn't tell me it, isn't it? Sophie asked. It's Grady and Adeline. Everything about them is weird. I still can't believe you're living with them. Are they adopting you? I don't know. What exactly is a mesmer? She asked, changing the subject to something that didn't make her nauseous. Wow, you really don't know anything, do you? Never mind. I'm just teasing. Sheesh. A mesmer can put you in trance and make you do anything you want, anything they want while you're in it. It's rare, but not as rare as inflicting, but close. She really didn't want to have to ask another stupid question, but curiosity won out. And inflicting is when someone makes you feel things, makes you laugh, makes you cry, causes you indescribable pain, whatever they want. It's extremely rare. I only know of one, and he's on the council, but there might be another. Your history mentor would know. Sophie cringed at the word history. She'd had her first session with Lady Dara that morning, and it was strange. Impossible pictures flashed across the walls during the entire lecture. Elves using telekinesis to help the humans build the pyramids, a tidal wave swallowing Atlantis, an army of hairy brown dwarves hollowing out the Himalayas to build the sanctuary, but the strangest part was Lady Dara. She kept losing her train of thought every time her eyes met Sophie's. And she'd mumble something about history in the making, and returned to the lecture. It totally creeped Sophie out. Hey, did you hear? Morella interrupted. Sir Tiegan's back. Who's he? Sophie asked, relieved she remembered to lie. Okay, like the most famous telepathy mentor ever? He retired when his friend Prentice went to exile. It was like a protest or something. Prentice? She tried not to sound interested, but she'd been dying to know more about him since. Alden had told her the information was classified. Yeah, he was this super talented telepath, but he got exiled like 12 years ago. How did he get exiled? You have to break a fundamental law. The council holds a tribunal, and if you're found guilty, they lock you up in a way deep underground for the rest of eternity. Morella shrugged. I don't know what he did, but I think it had to do with him being a keeper. It had to be pretty bad for the council to ruin his life, especially since it ruined his family's life too. His wife died in the fluke leaping accident not long after, and his son, Wiley, was adopted by Tiergan. Sophie's lunch turned in her stomach as Quinlan's words flashed through her mind. So this is why Prentice sacrificed everything. Quinlan had also implied that What? I'm filming! I'm sorry, guys. Get out! Jeez, right. Anyway. So this is why... Wait, where were we? Sophie's lunch turned in her stomach as Quinlan's words flashed through her mind. So this is why Prentice sacrificed everything. Quinlan had also implied she was a keeper. So if Prentice was a keeper, could that mean they were related? Could he be her father? The pieces fit. Abandoning a child was illegal for humans, so she doubted it was any less of a crime here. And if Prentice was a talented telepath, maybe he was a washer. Maybe he could alter the memories of two human parents and make them believe the child was theirs. But why? He didn't get rid of Wiley, so why dump her? Was there something that wrong with her? Unless it had something to do with her eye color or the way her brain worked. Do you know Wiley? Sophie asked quietly. She doubted she'd be brave enough to meet someone who could be her brother, but she was still curious. Morella shook her head. He's in the elite levels, so he's secluded from the rest of us. In the elite towers, we're not allowed to go there or interrupt their studies. Sophie couldn't decide if she was disappointed or relieved. Most likely, he didn't know anything, but no one else seemed to except Alden, and he wasn't telling. She'd have to figure it out on her own. She sorted through the scrambled bits of information in her head, searching for the cue that would finally put the pieces together. You okay? Morella asked, reminding her that she wasn't alone. Yeah, sorry, she said, trying to sound casual. When she asked her next question, have you ever heard of something called Project Moonlark? Morella frowned. Is that a sanctuary effort to relocate moonlarks? I have no idea. I heard it somewhere, and I don't know what it is. And I didn't know what it was. I thought you might know. She tried to find out more, but Grady never brought out the scrolls again, and she was too afraid to search the house. What if they caught her and kicked her out? Nope, never heard of it, but I doubt it's anything interesting. I know everything cool that goes on around here. Morella opened a can of strawberry-flavored air and took a deep breath of the pink fumes and spritzed around her. She licked her lips. Want some? Sophie shook her head, declining to shove the disturbing questions out of her head. To the dark corner of her mind, oh my god, where she'd pushed everything else that was too painful to think about. She had enough to deal with already. Worried about next session? Morella asked. Sophie nodded. Dex's warning about Lady Galvin finally failing prodigies had her terrified. It didn't help that Morella smirked and said, yeah, good luck with that. That bad? Yeah, Lady Galvin only mentors for the title. Being good at alchemy isn't the same as having a special ability. So unless she wanted to run some crazy apothecary like the Disneys, it was mentor or nothing. She hates it, and she takes it out on her prodigies. But who knows? Maybe you'll become her new star pupil. The words would have been encouraging if Morella hadn't burst into a hysterical fit of giggles after her. She was still cracking up when the bells chimed the intricate melody. Maybe Sophie imagined it, but the tones sounded ominous. A wide, round alchemy room smelled like burning hair, and the walls were lined with curved shelves. Half were filled with tiny pots of ingredients, and the other half were filled with what Sophie thought were trophies, but up close realized they were just random gilded items. Hats, books, pieces of fruit, a pair of curved, pointy-toed shoes that looked suspiciously like the ones she'd grown up believing elves wore. It was like King Midas had come through and turned everything he touched to gold. The center of the room had 2 empty lab tables, one gleaming silver and the other sleek and black. And the strangest experiment Sophie had ever seen. Lady Galvin wasn't there, so she dropped her stuff off the table and took a closer look at the giant bubble hovering over the ring of fire on the floor. Milky liquid filled the bubble, dancing up and down the ribbon of flames. "Step back!" Lady Galvin shouted, rushing over in a rustle of fabric. She yanked Sophie away. "Do you have any idea what that is?" She looked Sophie up and down and rolled her eyes. "No, I suppose you don't." Lady Galvin was slender and wore her red-brown hair in an updo so tight and full of twists it gave Sophie a headache just looking at it. Her cape was hunter green, made of silky fabric, decorated with emeralds sewn into elaborate patterns. It swished with ever the slightest movement. "It's alkahest," she announced. "The universal solvent. It can only be stored in a bubble of itself because it dissolves everything else. Wood, steel, flesh." Sophie backed another step away. "Is that what we're making today?" Lady Galvin sighed the way Sophie's dad used to while he was doing his taxes. "It's the second hardest substance for an alchemist to make. Don't you know anything about alchemy?" "I guess not," she admitted, and it probably wouldn't be wise to ask the hardest substance was to make, even though she was curious. All I ask for is a decent prodigy. And what do I get? Lady Galvin stalked across the room to one of the shelves. I should be teaching masters to turn living matter into gold, not little girls who don't know the difference between tincture and excuse my pronunciation. I don't know elven words. Little girls don't... Yep. Dame Alina probably thinks this is funny, forcing me to teach basic serums. Well, I won't have it. She removed a yellow card from a small box, grabbed an empty flask, a few jars of ingredients, and a long twisted silver spoon from the shelves and returned to Sophie. The serum is the first step to turn glass into iron. I'll have you transmuting metals if I have to walk you through it, step by step. Sophie glanced at the recipe. The chemical formula didn't look too hard. The ingredients were familiar, but the jars were labeled, and there were only two simple instructions. Lady Galvin folded her cape, fiddled with her cape, and rolled her eyes as Sophie checked and rechecked each amount to be sure she wasn't making any mistakes. When she felt confident that she was right, she poured everything into a flask. Then she plunged the spoon in and whipped the liquid the same way she learned to whip cream. "Don't!" Lady Galvin shouted, rushing forward to stop her. A second too late, the liquid fizzed and rumbled. Sophie jumped out of the way as the sicky gray jelly exploded all over Lady Galvin's exquisite cape. Sophie watched in horror as the sludge dissolved the luxurious fabric. "I'm so sorry!" She reached out for the damaged cape to see if there was anything she could do to salvage it, but Lady Galvin grabbed her hands to stop her. That's when she noticed the red welt on the back of Sophie's wrist, where some of the slime caught her. She sighed. "Better head to the healing center." "Yes, ma'am," Sophie said, hardly eager to see another doctor, but Lady Galvin looked ready to murder someone. She rushed out to grab her satchel. "Should I come back here afterward?" "No!" Sophie slunk toward the door. "Okay, see you next week." Lady Galvin's face darkened as she turned away, muttering under her breath about incompetence. Sophie stumbled through the hall, the panic making it hard to think straight. Would Lady Galvin flunk her? Should she use the imparter to call Alden and see if he could help? "You must be lost." The boy's deep voice brought her out of her trance. He wore a green level 4 uniform and was sprawled across a bench, watching her with curious, ice blue eyes. She blinked, noticing the hallways were stark white now. "How did you know?" He smirked. "It's the middle of session. Either you're lost or you're ditching, and you're clearly not ditching." "Why couldn't I be ditching?" she asked, not exactly sure why she was arguing. "Are you?" "No," she admitted, his lips twisting into a crooked grin. "You're the new girl, aren't you?" She sighed and nodded. "I'm Keith. Sophie, but I'm sure you already know that." He laughed. You may be the biggest news to hit the academy since the Great Gulan incident 3 years ago, which, by the way, I had nothing to do with." He flashed a slightly wicked smile, but that's not a bad thing personally. I've always enjoyed being the center of attention. She didn't doubt that, from his disheveled blonde hair to the way he'd rolled up his sleeves and left his shirt untucked. She could tell. He was cool. Probably popular, too. So why was he talking to her? She'd almost asked him, but stopped herself at the last second. Where are you supposed to be?" she asked. Instead, "The universe. I ditch whenever I can. Lady Belva has the worst crush on me. I can't blame her." He gestured to himself, but still. It's awkward, you know? She was 90% certain he was joking, but he was also very good looking. She was sure at least half the girls in the school had a crush on him. And now I get to meet the mysterious new girl, he added, so I'd say ditching paid off pretty well. She felt herself blush and hoped he didn't notice. "I'm hardly mysterious." "I don't know. You won't tell me why you're not in session? Don't think I haven't noticed." She stared at her feet. "That's because it's too embarrassing." "I love embarrassing," he laughed when she stayed silent. "Will you at least tell me where you're supposed to be?" She sighed. "Alchemy with Lady Galvin." Ugh, she's the worst. I had her in level 3, and she hated me. Probably because I turned a lab into silver, but... Probably because I turned a lab table into silver. But she said she wanted me to impress her. He winked. Still, I wouldn't mention that we're friends if I were you. Friends? Since when did cool, cute boys want to be her friend? Not that she was complaining. So, what, did Lady Galvin kick you out or something? He asked. Kind of. So now this, I have to hear. You're probably gonna laugh at me. Probably, he agreed. He clearly wasn't going to let this go, so she kept her eyes glued to the floor. I accidentally exploded the serum I was making. Right on cue, he burst into laughter. Did you do any damage? Only to her cape. Whoa. Did you have any idea how epic that is? The cape is her pride and joy. Did you send it to Dame Melina's office? No, she sent me to the healing center. A little of it got on my hand. She glared at the ugly welt. He studied her for a second, then shook his head. Wow, most girls would be crying about that wound like that. Most guys, too. Even I played up for sympathy and stuff. It must look worse than it is. Still, don't you think you should get it treated? I guess. He laughed again. You just turned whiter than those walls. What's wrong? Nothing. There was no way she was telling him about her doctor phobia. She'd never hear the end of it. Come on, then. I'm taking you to the healing center, so you don't get lost again. He hooked her arm around hers and dragged her away before she could resist. The healing center consisted of 3 rooms, a treatment area with 4 empty beds, a huge laboratory where strange alchemy experiments were brewing, and the physician's personal office. There was where a familiar face sat in the enormous desk covered with paperwork. Sophie? Alwyn asked. I figured I'd have to drag you back here to check up on you. I know, she said, very aware of how Keith cocked his head toward her. I have a tiny burn I need you to treat. No big deal. Well, I'll check it out. As he got up, a slinky gray creature turned and hissed, skittering across the floor. Don't mind Bullhorn, Alwyn said as Sophie backed against the door. He's harmless. Bullhorn looked like a demented ferret with beady purple eyes. What is he? A banshee. Adorable, isn't he? Sure. Bullhorn snapped at her ankles. Keith laughed. What brings you here today, Keith? Alwyn asked. Just helping a fellow prodigy, sir. Alwyn grinned. I noticed you have to miss your session to do it. I know. Such a shame. He sighed dramatically. But Sophie needed help. So, what could I do? What indeed? I suppose you'll be wanting a pass to excuse you? What a good idea. You always have been one to seize the opportunity. Alwyn handed Keith a slip of paper. Session won't be over for another half hour, so I'd walk slow if I were you. Oh, I can't leave yet. Not until I know Sophie will be okay. So where's the burn? He asked Sophie. She wanted to be brave in front of Keith, but her arms still shook when Alwyn put his funny glasses on and switched a blue light around her hand. Alwyn frowned. This looks like an acid burn. How did you manage that? Slight accident in my alchemy session. Keith made a huge explosion, complete with sound effects. Destroyed Galvin's cape. Alwyn dropped his hand, cracking up. I wish I could have seen that. Sorry, he added when he caught her scowl. Have a seat and I can treat it. He had Sophie sit on one of the beds and grabbed a small jar from one of the shelves. She tried to stay calm as she rubbed the purple salve on her burn, but Keith saw her flinch. Out of curiosity, Alwyn asked, how did you explode the serum? I'm not sure. I measured everything twice and added in the right order. I was supposed to, but when I whipped it, it exploded. Whipped it? Keith interrupted. Yeah, at first I thought it said WAP, but I figured I had read it wrong, so I whipped it. Alwyn and Keith both burst into hysterical laughter. WHAP means wash hands and present, Keith managed to explain between laughs. Oh, she was officially an idiot. Why didn't she ask for clarification? Alwyn cleared his throat. It's an honest mistake. Could have happened to anyone. It didn't. It happened to her. She knew she wasn't going to live this down anytime soon. This is going to be epic, Keith said, confirming her fear. I can't wait for tomorrow, she sighed. At least that made one of them. That is chapter 20. Let me know if you want more. I'm probably going to film chapter 21 right after this anyway. But I hope you liked it, and I am planning on doing more long-form content from now on. So I will see you next time. Bye.